Am I the a-hole for telling my wife no more unsupervised visits between our kids and their grandparents? My wife and I have been together for 8 years, married for 5, and we have 2 daughters. It doesn't really matter, but given the situation of things, the 6 years old is biologically mine while the 10 years old is not. The 2 often spend Friday to Sunday at their grandparents' house. I've noticed our 10 years old for a few weeks has been quiet upon picking them up. She wouldn't tell me what was wrong though. This afternoon she was emotional when she got in my truck. I could tell she had been crying. We were heading to Walmart before going home, and I wasn't going to force her into the store upset. Finally, after some prying, she told me her grandmother is being rude to her. She explained how she is forbidding her any treats, making comments about her body. She's only allowed vegetables and chicken. But gives the 6 years old whatever she wants while saying to the 10 years old, when you lose weight, you can enjoy these things in moderation. This morning the grandparents brought in donuts. 10 years old snuck one and went to their room. Grandmother walked in to find her shoving it behind the bed after taking a bite. She flipped her lid on her for sneaking food and making a mess. I was so livid, I left the kids in the truck, called her from the parking lot and ripped into her. I will admit, I was pissed and was aggressive with my tone and words. Grandmother's only response was she has to take matters into her own hands because I as the stepfather do not care about her granddaughter's health. My daughter seemed relieved in the sense she got it off her chest, and I told her to ignore her grandmother because that was very inappropriate behavior. We went into the store, got our groceries, and feeling bad I bought each daughter a gift for just because and to take the 10 years/oh's mind off things. When we got home, my wife was very upset about how I spoke to her mother. I told her what she did. She saw the girls' toys I bought. My wife says, "You know, regardless of how you feel about what my mom did, I can't believe you rewarded bad behavior because she, 10 years old, did disobey my mom's rule about only eating healthy foods while at her house." What? What she did was traumatizing to our child. I told my wife no more unsupervised overnight stays at their house. My wife said that was totally unreasonable and I needed to apologize to her mother for my explosive behavior over the phone. I'm man enough to apologize for my tone, but not the plan of action to protect the child. Not the a-hole. That little girl is lucky to have you. Her mother and grandmother are only going to succeed in giving that child body issues and an eating disorder if they keep this up. Am I the a-hole, 24 female, for not lying about my profession? Hello everyone. This happened hours ago and my mind is boggled. Me, 24 female, my fiancé, 28 male, went to his best friend's, Alex 30 male, and his now fiancée Nell, 27 female, engagement party today. Essentially at the engagement party, I was talking to an older lady who had spotted my iron ring because she was wearing one as well. A iron ring is presented to engineers in Canada once they graduate, and I was asking her a whole bunch of questions about her career, which field of engineering she's in, etc. Turns out she was Nell's future mill sister. Then Nell and Alex came over to say hi and I congratulated them both. Then Nell's mill sister and I continued our conversation, and then Nell spoke up and said, "Why are you lying about being an engineer? Don't you work at Victoria's Secret or something?" And I was like, "Yeah, I used to work at Victoria's Secret when I was in uni, but now I work as a software engineer." And then Nell started laughing a bit and said, "No you don't, stop lying," and everyone visibly got really awkward. My fiancé came over and greeted everyone, and Nell continued to berate me in front of everyone, saying that I was lying about my job, and how my fiancé shouldn't be enabling me to lie to everyone by saying that I'm an engineer. I then told her to stop and I stood my ground and said I would never lie about my job. I worked really hard to get where I am. And then Nell got extremely upset and started saying that I'm ruining her engagement party, I'm making everything about myself, and that someone like me cannot be in that field of work. My fiancé got upset and asked Alex if Nell was drunk or not because what she was saying to me was out of line and that she has no right whatsoever to speak to me like that. Then me and him both left early, and I keep on getting calls and texts from her friends calling me a bitch for being standoffish. My fiancé got a call from Alex asking us to not make this a big deal, and my fiancé told him we're not going to communicate with them any further until Nell apologizes to me. Not the a-hole, but I think you already knew that, lol. She's gonna be a hell of a bridezilla. Am I the a-hole for compelling my husband to include our daughters more in his hobbies instead of just our son? I have 3 children, 2 twin girls, 8, and 1 boy, 5. My husband had always preferred a son, but he remained neutral when our first 2 were daughters. Don't get me wrong, he loves our daughters, but somehow has this poor misunderstanding that they would not be able to enjoy the things he likes because they are girls, and leaves it to me to bring them out or engage them. Before, he at least used to involve them in fishing or soccer and his other hobbies, but after my son was born, my husband completely stopped engaging my daughters in his hobbies and only involves our son. He leaves the bulk of it to me because they have more in common with me. I involve all 3 of my children equally in whatever I do, be it sports or gardening or even teaching them coding. I'm in tech. It is quite disheartening to see the indifference, and my girls are maturing fast and I am worried they will catch on to the idea that they are lesser than. I have communicated multiple times and suggested that when he takes our son out to fish or do sports, bring our daughters too so they can learn, but he says he prefers one-on-one bonding sessions with our son and communication with our girls, and that he can't change his parenting style. Our girls are athletically inclined as well. I used to be in competitive tennis for most of my schooling years, and I trained both of them and my son every Saturday or Friday depending on my free time. Last Saturday there was a community football game which was set up as part of a charity with a mini carnival. I was shocked to find out that my husband bought only 2 tickets for him and our son, even though there were plenty available for our daughters to join. Even if he believed they wouldn't have enjoyed the game, they could have participated in the carnival. In that anger I bought 3 tickets last minute and brought our daughters along as well, but sat separate and enjoyed the carnival and game by our own means. Ironically enough, my husband thought I was being condescending by doing that, even though I was giving him a taste of his own medicine. I might be the odd for reacting like that, but after multiple failed avenues for communication I decided to resort to underhand pettiness. He also told me after that it is not that he doesn't care for our girls, but just that he does not have anything in common with them, which boils my blood. Even if, as I said, both of our daughters are very inclined in sports and love spending time with their father. Couples counseling. That's what you two need. He's never going to hear it from your woman mouth. Your husband is being an asshole to the girls and raising a spoiled special entitled son in the process. He will ruin all 3 kids with this crap. Not the a-hole. Am I the a-hole for correcting my ex's new wife? I am 48, female, and was married to my ex, Jim, 49, for 20 years. We have 3 kids, 22 female, 20 male, 18 male, and have been divorced for 5 years. Both of us are now remarried, but we maintain a good relationship for our kids and because we do like each other. We divorced because Jim was a bad husband and not a great dad when we were together. Jim worked long hours to build a wonderful career while I had to neglect my career to be there for our children. He didn't truly understand until it was too late. He provided for us and still does provide for our kids. I am grateful for everything he did, but admit that I resented him during our marriage because I had to watch his career take off while mine, same career, stalled. For a little more context, I married a mutual friend, David, 50, of Jim and me. We were both divorced, no cheating was involved, and my ex has never had an issue with it because he knows that we didn't cheat. We both had a conversation with him at the start of the relationship and he was actually happy for us. 4 years ago Jim met Kara, 34, and they got married 2 years. It's her first marriage and they had their first baby last year. As I mentioned, Jim and I have a great relationship that includes monthly dinner with our children and just us. We have been doing this since we separated 6 years ago, so our children understand that we are still a family and it allows our kids an opportunity to share things with their parents and siblings without anyone else. The issue came up on Easter and I'm not sure if I'm the asshole or justified. We were all at former Mill's house for the holiday and Kara was going on and on about what a wonderful husband and father Jim is to her and their daughter. I don't care because I know my ex has more time now than he did when our children were younger. I didn't really say anything until Kara looked directly at me and asked in front of the entire family why I ever gave Jim up. She also made a comment about me being too busy falling in love with my husband's best friend. I simply looked back at her and said, you know, Kara, he wasn't always a great husband and is only so wonderful now because I was willing to make a ton of sacrifices so he could have a successful career, but don't worry, you are very welcome for that. Almost everyone laughed, including Jim, but Kara was pissed and texted me later that night to tell me how hurt she was that I insulted her and her husband at Easter dinner and said I shouldn't have even been there. I ignored her text at first, but she called the next day to continue the conversation. The conversation eventually turned to me explaining that my marriage to Jim and her marriage are very different, and while I'm happy that they are happy and have a great life, she doesn't get to rewrite history or comment on the type of husband Jim was to me. I reminded her that Jim and I have spent many years working through our crap, and while she may think she is funny, she just comes off as insecure. So, am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. It was pretty audacious of her to assume the demise of your relationship with your ex was entirely on your shoulders, not to mention very insulting to accuse you of cheating. She needs to grow up and take responsibility of her words, especially as a mom. Am I the a-hole for forcing my grandma into a nursing home? My grandmother, GM, was kicked out of my aunt's house when she caused so many marital problems my uncle threatened to divorce my aunt if she didn't. She lived for a few years in a nursing home before the pandemic, but during the pandemic there were tons of nursing home deaths, so my aunt and mom got her out. I'm the oldest of my mother's children, so I got so much pressure to take care of my grandma during the pandemic. I didn't mind too much initially because the deal was I didn't pay rent and lived with her, to cook, clean and help her with her diabetes. I don't know my GM well, so I thought it might be a good bonding experience, and I worked remote so it would be so bad. Well, the first problem came when I told them I was bringing my dog. My GM freaked out, telling me she would never let a filthy animal in her house. It was the one deal breaker I had, and I told my aunt or mom Oliver, my dog, had to come with, but they never told my GM for fear of her reaction. I put my foot down saying if he isn't coming I'm not either, and I guess my GM gave up because she didn't want to go back to the nursing home, but she made Oliver's life a living hell. She would scream at him every time she was him, and I tried to keep them separate, but she would demand I abandon him because she's my GM. In the end I had no choice but to leave him with my friend temporarily because she was so unbearable. Next was washing clothing. She demanded I wash all her clothing by hand, and she had a washing machine, but she would scream "You're lazy" at me if she catches me using it. She also wanted restaurant quality meals and throw sandwiches and cereal on the ground if she didn't like it. Finally she didn't believe I worked because I work online. I'm an accountant, and she would yell at me during the middle of meeting for ignoring her when I told her I needed 30 minutes of peace to attend meeting. My boss told me many times to get her to stop doing that, but she never listens. She has diabetes that isn't managed well, and I tried to get her on a healthy diet, but she screams and yells at me when she doesn't get what foods she wants, which cause huge sugar fluctuations, which causes her ulcers on her feet to get worse and weep. It was hard to get appointments to the doctor, so I had to clean them, and I am not qualified. When I persisted though the yelling and screaming her ulcers to make her eat healthy, her ulcers would get much better and start healing, but in the end I gave up and let her eat anything she wanted so she would shut up, but it made her blood sugars worse and her ulcers worse, which I had to deal with. So after almost 2 years of hell I got out and moved back to my original city. My GM is so mad because she expected that I stay there looking after her until she passes. I told my mom and aunt I wasn't doing that, and they begged me to guilty me with the fact she was going to die alone at a nursing home. I feel like a terrible person because I didn't feel any guilt, I just didn't care after dealing with her for 2 years. Not the a-hole you gave her 2 years of your life. Hope you got Oliver back with you. Am I the a-hole for getting mad at my mom for making my girlfriend sleep on the floor? Throwaway. My girlfriend, Rose, and I have been together for 4 years, and she is 5 months pregnant with our first child. My mom seemed to really like Rose, or at the very least tolerated her, but after we announced that we were expecting, something definitely switched in her. She has become extremely rude and disrespectful towards my girlfriend. She makes passive-aggressive comments at every chance she gets. I've had to take a step back from my mother until she fixes her behavior. Rose had gone to visit her family who lives far out of town. It was a very last-minute trip, and she drove herself to the destination and back. Unfortunately, at around 6 p.m., her car broke down and she was forced to pull over. Fortunately, my brother, Chris, who's great with cars and lives about an hour and a half from where Rose was stranded, was willing to pick her up and sorted everything out. I was out of the country, so I'm grateful that my brother sorted everything out for her. Chris moved back in with my mom about a year ago. Obviously, the situation wasn't the best, especially considering the tension between Rose and my mom that exists for no particular reason, but I hoped my mom could put her pettiness aside for at least a night. It was too late for Chris to drive Rose back home, so my brother told her that he would drive her back tomorrow morning. An arrangement that my mom seems to not like, but one that she managed to keep her mouth shut about, my girlfriend tells me. Rose helps prepare dinner, wash up, and actually engage in a decent conversation with my mom for the first time in ages. However, they mostly avoid each other. Chris goes to bed earlier, leaving my mom and Rose. My mom lives in a 2-bedroom apartment, and since both bedrooms were taken, Rose assumed that she would be sleeping on the couch. She apparently assumed wrong. My mom gives Rose the thinnest blanket ever and basically screams at her, telling her that she has to sleep on the floor to not ruin her couch. She tells Rose to make do with the pillows on the couch and the blanket that provides zero warmth. Rose thought about protesting, but ultimately decided against it. According to Rose, my mom kept opening her door to check if she was sleeping on the couch, so she couldn't even try to sleep on the couch. At 5 a.m., Chris found Rose on the couch and let her sleep on his bed. He ended up telling me, but told me to not make a big fuss out of it. I did the exact opposite. I called my mom, very angry, and told her that she was disrespecting her so badly. She tried to defend herself by saying that she didn't harm the baby, and it's okay for pregnant women to sleep on the floor, but I refused to hear any of it. Chris agrees with me, but told me that I shouldn't make it a fight. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole, but I would put boundaries on the mother seeing the baby. She shouldn't see the kid unless she can respect the mother. Am I the a-hole for signing up my girlfriend for a social etiquette class before meeting my family? GF and I have been together for a little under 3 months, and we agreed it's time for her to meet my family. For some context, I'm blessed and had a fortunate upbringing. My GF on the other hand faced some challenges in her life from a young age, particularly financial challenges. She's a beautiful, interesting person despite all of the hardships she faced. The only problem is that she lacks the manners that my family typically expects from someone I'm in a relationship with. My GF is the first less fortunate woman I'm dating. For that reason I made the effort to prepare her for her first dinner with my family. I got her signed up for an online social etiquette course and thought this was a good idea. However, when I told her, she was absolutely furious. She claimed that I'm obviously embarrassed to be with her and that I should just marry a rich girl instead. She even accused me of being just another white, privileged guy. To make matters worse, she said that it's racially insensitive of me to feel the need to teach her how to behave. So am I the complete asshole here? Explanations are more than welcome. Info: is your grandmother the Queen of England?